Welcome back to the 5Q VO Pro podcast. As always, it's the same 5 questions with a different VO Pro's answers. I'm your host, Bryan Showalter, Chief Engineer at LA Digital Recording, and today we have a true professional in every sense of the word, my friend, deal or no deal, Joe Cipriano. How you doing,
I think
brother?
you mean semi-professional, don't you? I'm a semi-pro. How are you doing?
I'm great, man. Thanks for coming on.
My pleasure. Are you kidding?
So let's jump right into it. Question number 1. What were some of the jobs you were doing before you became a full-time voiceover professional?
Okay. Well, I'd have to say radio. And I've never had a job other than voiceover full-time or radio on the air. So I started at 14 years of age, hanging around a radio station in my hometown, Waterbury, Connecticut. And by the time I was 16, they actually put me on the air. So I worked in Waterbury. I started off doing nights. I was in high school. I was a junior in high school. So I'd go to school during the day, do my homework while I was on the air from 6 to 10 at night. And then when I graduated, they moved me to afternoon drive. And then radio took me into voiceovers. I did part-time work in Hartford, got a full-time job for NBC in Washington, D.C. I worked there on the air at 2 radio stations. It's where I met my wife. She was a news writer at NBC, and I was a disc jockey on the FM. And then radio took me to L.A. because I wanted to pursue voiceover. I had started it in D.C., but I knew the big gigs were in L.A. So I wouldn't come here as a out-of-work actor because I didn't want to starve. So I used radio as my day job. That's all I did. And then, it was part-time VO. And then one day, this brand new network in 1988 called Fox heard me on the air on Kiss FM in LA. And that turned into about 23 years of being the comedy voice of the Fox network.
All right, man, question number 2. What has been your favorite voiceover gig or session of all time?
Well, it's all good. I mean, being a network voice is pretty darn good. So I got to do Fox and for 20-something years, and I added CBS to that. And, doing promos. I guess doing promos for networks. I've done live announcing for Grammys and Emmys, game shows. It's all good, Bri. It's all good.
Right. You can't beat it, man. You can't beat it. Question number 3. Maybe you haven't had one. What was your worst session or, VO gig of all time? One, just didn't go as planned or...
I do remember back in the 80s, Don LaFontaine and I used to share a client, and it was kind of like a Bed Bath & Beyond, but it wasn't Bed Bath. It was something else. Don was the voice of it year-round, and they would use me for all of their back-to-school ads. And the ad agency was actually a husband and wife team who never, ever got along. They would get into these epic arguments during sessions.
Wow.
And it would always end up that one of them would bolt out of the studio, slam the door behind him, and then we'd continue the session. Either the husband or the wife was left directing, and it always happened that whoever walked out, the husband or the wife who left the session, would come back in, hear what we've been doing for the past 15, 20 minutes, and they'd get into another huge argument. And then the other spouse who was directing me would then run out of the studio and slam the door, and then the other one would start to... I mean, it was ridiculous. And thank God I only did back-to-school spots for them. But I know Don... He had the same problem, but he would just do crossword puzzles.
Oh my God!
While the craziness was happening.
That's great, man. I'm thinking of a modification to question number 3. I think it should more focus on, what was an interesting director, because they all seem to sort of coalesce around that other person in the room with us.
That's true.
Question number 4. What's one piece of advice you'd give to somebody starting in voiceover, or, they're part-time, they're hustling to, make it their full-time gig? What's a piece of advice you got for those people?
It's always education. That is it. Coaching, workshops, seminars, going to those casting nights where you get to read for a casting director or an agent or a producer. Bryan, you have to put the work in before you can start getting booked or even try to get booked. So, and you can't skip steps. I am so positive of that. You have to commit yourself 100%. You got to treat it like a business. We know it's a business. A lot of people that are getting into it, it's like a dream for them. But you have to understand that you can't do this halfway. There are way too many people out there who are working at it twice as hard as you. So you have to commit to that. Education, and never give up, do the coaching, do the workshops, and then treat it like a biz.
Yeah, I love that, man. And that's so true of, a lot of things, being a musician, playing in bands in the past. It's the same thing. There are so many people doing it at a great level that
Absolutely.
You've got to have that commitment and grit and get the training and not
I agree.
quit. Yeah, that's great, man.
Yeah.
All right, last but not least, question number 5. What's a quote or anecdote that stuck with you over all your years in radio and VO?
Well, I'd have to say early on in my career, we had just moved to L.A., and so I was taking acting lessons. I wanted to do that. I wanted to do improv and try to learn, acting. Yeah. And I worked with a guy named Wayne Dvorak, great acting coach. I mean, this is like early 80s, like 81, 82, somewhere around there. It was a class, about 10 of us that were in a class. And we would do scenes, you'd rehearse, memorize, do scenes, do improv, do just about everything. So he was a very smart guy. He told all of us once in class about the gods of making dreams come true.
Right.
These are the gods that are up in the heavens, Bryan, okay? They're looking down at us, and their job is to help us achieve our dreams and goals.
Got it.
And the way that they can follow you and help you is you have a little red light on the top of your head that glows bright when you're working on your dreams, when you're working on goals and taking lessons and doing all the things that you need to do. But, if you start to slack off and maybe you miss it a day or a couple of days, the light starts to dim. And, when that happens, they can't see you. They can't find you through the clouds, And all they want to do is make your dreams come true. So if you want to achieve your dreams, you have to keep that red light bright and work at your goals and your dreams every single day so that the gods of making dreams come true can find you.
You get out of it what you put into it often.
Absolutely.
So, you've got to put in 100%, man. All right, bonus question, because lots of people are always interested in this. What mic and what interface are you using at your home studio?
Boy, it's changed. My home studio was, Sirius Avalon preamp, U87, and Sennheiser 416. I had a digital audio board. I could, select inputs for different faders.
Yep. And now we're all scaling down.
So now this it fits into a little bag that I can take with me. It's at my home studio, and it's my remote studio when I go anywhere. Apollo Twin, you knew I was going to say that. Apollo Twin, a MacBook Pro or Air, doesn't make any difference. Pro Tools, 416 microphone, headphones, boom. There it is.
Love it, man. Isn't it amazing? It's like what was the travel rig is now just become the rig.
Yeah, exactly.
That's great.
Exactly.
That's great.
It's amazing. Technology kicks butt.
Right, man. It keeps getting better and better. Joe Cipriano, man, thank you so much for coming on. I really appreciate it, brother.
Thanks, Bryan.
All right, that wraps up another episode of the 5Q VO Pro podcast. I'm your host, Bryan Showalter. Join us each week for the same 5 questions, but a different VO Pro giving you the answers.